We live in an age of sweeping educational reform. A university education is becoming increasingly expensive, meaning that future generations of students will come to university with a different set of expectations and ambitions. Meanwhile, the Education Secretary, Michael Gove, has proposed a raft of changes that makes learning and testing the backbone of a secondary education and discourages state schools from teaching most art subjects. Alys and I started this research project because we were curious about how these changes might affect the creativity of young people in Britain and alter their perceptions of the arts. Michael Gove says that rote learning has to be the backbone of any creative thinking, but the educational theorist Sir Ken Robinson has said that because we have no idea about what kinds of challenges they're going to need to face, we need to be teaching young people to think creatively rather than teaching them facts and figures by rote.
Sophie and I wondered, when academics and educational policymakers make changes to the curriculum, how often do they actually ask the rising generation, those who are going to be most affected by the changes, what they think of them? And we set out to address this. We recruited 8 postgraduates, all research students from the universities of York and Leeds, to workshop with students in Huntington School. We wanted to know what these 16 and 17-year-olds think creativity is, whether they think it's important, whether they think their current curriculum encourages them to think and work creatively, what their ambitions are for the future. Unrestrained by any sort of curriculum or assessment, we workshopped with students in small groups and made our focus discussion for discussion's sake. Our students were all on the school's programme for Oxbridge applications. Only 2 out of 19 students wanted to study an arts subject at university. The others looked forward to studying sciences or social sciences, and most were taking A-levels or IB subjects with a heavy scientific bias. We asked them why this was.
I think it's easier to do maths or physics. This could be very hard to say, but I think it's easier to do an academic subject and study that to lead on to a job than go down the arts route where there's a high chance that you won't get a stable job.
You could spend 6 months doing a creative job and take off, get noticed, millions and millions of pounds, or equally spend 6 months and have nothing to show for it at the end because no one's noticed you.
We found that in the first couple of workshops, when the students tried to define what creativity actually was, they seemed to define it along the lines of always being an arts-based thing, and the projects, the creative projects that they proposed, accordingly were often kind of sculpture, visual art, poetry, that sort of thing. They seemed to find it difficult to think of maths or science-based subjects as creative. But as the workshops programme proceeded, we found that the students actually modified their idea of creativity and started to draw links across arts and science-based subjects.
Actually, eventually, the students who filled in our questionnaire, 15 out of 16 of them disagreed with the statement that only the art subjects were creative, and the same number agreed that it's important to study all subjects, not only the arts, in a creative way. You can see this if you have a look at our exhibition and the way in which the projects that the students produced combine science, technology and maths together.
It's not really an arty sort of path that I've laid out in front of me, so I don't think it's changed it that much, but it has made me think more about like creativity and how I can implement that into what I want to do. Things like in maths, stuff like problem solving, if you're more creative about that then you're thinking of different solutions rather than just sticking with things that you would like normally use. If you're more creative about it, same with like science, if you want to solve a problem then being creative I think would help to give you more ideas about how to do that.
Interestingly, by the end of the workshops programme, even though only 2 students wanted to pursue an arts-based career, the vast majority, 14 out of 16, agreed that it was important to study art subjects at school, and only 1 said that studying art subjects was a waste of time. 15 out of 16 students saw a place for creativity in their own futures. Only 1 disagreed with the statement that the arts are worthwhile regardless of whether or not they make money, and only one student disagreed that arts projects and activities should be funded by the state. It seemed that our students, despite the pressure on them to see education as primarily a stepping stone to a successful career, also sensed something valuable in arts-based activities that transcends this narrow vocational focus.
I think that more funding should be given to schools, and especially like the arts and things, because it is pretty much like, especially with the Gove curriculum that was the EBAC, where it's just scrapping all arts pretty much. And I think that's totally wrong, because that's just excluding a lot of people from like good careers and things.
Do you think that arts have a benefit on society as a whole?
Yeah, I do, because if arts, I think, is what people enjoy more, people do it for enjoyment, whereas a lot of things like sciences, you wouldn't like you wouldn't go for a night out normally to do science things, whereas you would go to the theatre or something like that and enjoy arts. So I think it is very important to like keep it as a strong thing in society.
We tried to draw out the students' thoughts about what an education is for by introducing them directly to some of the political debate about the state school curriculum. Did they think the purpose of education should be to pass exams and get a job? Did they agree with Michael Gove that we need to get back to educational basics, reading, writing and arithmetic? Or did they agree with educational theorist Sir Ken Robinson that understanding and nurturing creativity, which is often achieved by working in unconventional ways, is more important?
I don't know his name. I can only remember him as the cool guy. The
Ken
guy
Robinson. The drawing.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, his ideas of like education sound great compared to the other guys, but like the other guy, makes them like suited to society, whereas the other guy was like, this is how it should be, but trying to get it to work in society probably won't work. But that still makes you realise of kind of like what you want and what you get, and that happens a lot. So you work with what you get.
It just seems very, I don't know, the future of this seems bleak. Not in a bad way. It's an amazing, I love the school, it's great, but I just think because there's no progress, there's very little innovation, it seems almost that in comparison to everything else, schooling is going backwards because there's no next step. They're just producing grades, which albeit is impressive, but it seems a little formulaic and moulded.
It is really not right at all how it's run, and everything like you just judged by at the end of all like your learning. You do like one exam and then whatever you get on that is how you're judged, just numbers on paper.
It's still jumping through loops. At the end of the day, it's letters on paper that count for us. So,
Do you think that's right? Do you think that's how it should be?
How else are you going to do it?
I don't know. Is there another way to do it?
It's really annoying how they assess it. Seriously annoying, because it's so strict, and like you can put twist instead of rotate and you don't get the mark, and that's an actual example.
I think it'd be better to be more creative. Like it is basically just, it sets out what you have to learn it, and then like regurgitate it back onto an exam. Where I think it'd be a lot better to learn because you want to learn it, and learn more about the subject rather than learning how to pass an exam. And then it gives you a chance to be more creative around that subject.
These discussions encourage the students to reflect on the educational practices that have informed the curriculum that's shaped them and the teaching they've received. Huntington School is the biggest school in York, and its examination results in 2012 put it among the top 100 schools in the country. It tries to balance the examination hoop jump imperative with the desire to provide a broader educational experience. But the students said they found something different in the reflective workshops that were unconstrained by curriculum or, importantly, assessment. And learning in this different way encouraged them to reconsider and challenge the very basis of their general education. The students particularly expressed concerns about how current modes of education prepare them, or don't, for university.
How's it been different from those lessons?
Well,
it's been entirely about the discussion.
Yeah, the object of discussion has been discussion. In class, it's let's work towards a point of view which we can add into an assessment, or let's explore a topic widely so we can write about all the explorations. And with this, it is about discussion, which is why I felt more social, because as some people know, we just chat anyway about on that nature of more profound things. But it was interesting to do that in a classroom style situation, because you wouldn't naturally feel. It's not that you feel uncomfortable, putting your views across. It just seems like it would be slightly inappropriate. For instance, in essays, you don't really say I, and that's how it felt. It felt like we weren't getting to say I.
Yeah, it was all about your personal view, and and along with that, even moving away from the point about eloquence and being articulate, it was also about the ideas themselves for once, which is amazing. We never ever we both want to do English, but really the point of English isn't about the ideas itself, it's about how well you can express them. And for once it was all about the actual ideas. It was about how well you can argue them, what the content of them is. How because it is personal and it does reflect your viewpoint, and you're not going to, and for once it isn't just you being impressive, for once it's true for once, which is really different to anything else we've done in discussion.
Yeah, I think it helps you learn, we learned about our paragraph and different things, and it was a more interesting way to learn things rather than just being told things. And we don't really do that much kind of discussion in lessons. And even Miss Sean was saying that with interviews for university you do a lot of discussions, whereas in science-based subjects you don't really do that much in lessons, so you kind of get out of practice of doing it. And she said it's really useful to do it on lots of topics because you learn more about it and look at all the different options and ideas that different people think. So I think it's a really nice way to learn, because you get more ideas as well as being told the content. You get to see different people's viewpoints, which is really good.
I did an experiment the other week. I tried to be interesting in a history essay. I got a very low score indeed.
I tried that last week as well.
What score did you get?
I got a 5 out of 12, which for me ain't great. But I just wanted to see if I wrote some of my opinion, which I deemed to be more interesting than the facts we'd have to give, then maybe I could get some marks for that. It turns out you get no marks for flamboyance or flair. It's facts and formula, which kind of upsets me because that's not what history's about. I was getting a little bit terse about the fact that they're saying so much, as in there's these two spheres. It's, do you want to go to Oxford? We've decided, let's have a go. There, it's be as interesting as you physically can be articulate, be fabulous. And here it's right, but in order to earn that privilege, you have to plough through the mark schemes and this and that, and it just seems as though if we could amalgamate the two worlds,
that'd be brilliant.
A-level would be far more interesting. It's interesting as it is. We learn interesting stuff, I'm not disputing that. I just think that if it was more of a personal approach, more of a creative approach, then it would be a lot more valuable. It almost teaches how to learn rather than teaches how to regurgitate.
Yeah. Our postgrad facilitators were also learning. Our workshops were designed to draw students out in different ways, and the facilitators found it extraordinary how much more relaxed, engaged and vocal their students were when a creative activity was incorporated into the discussion process. In these workshops, students are making paint and clay representations of their future ambitions. These students all want to pursue science or maths-based careers, but the creative and so-called arty activity of sculpting helped them to refine the reasons why they held these ambitions and to clarify their thinking about them.
It was somehow so liberating for our group, and it was the most eloquent that I've seen them, because they were not thinking about what they were thinking about. When I asked them to define creativity, they kind of clammed up and they were looking for the right response. Whereas when they were playing with the clay, they were just enjoying having fun and exploring with the clay and having a conversation which could go in any way that they wanted it to go, and that was so much more liberating for them somehow. because they knew that, well, the purpose was to be playing with the clay, and so anything else that happened was just kind of more incidental.
At the end of the workshops programme, we ask the students to present their own creative projects to express their thoughts about some of the issues we discussed. You can see, touch and listen to these projects and find out more about them in this exhibition. You can see poetry that reflects on the everyday omniscience of creativity, an electrical sculpture that positions beauty directly in between science and art, sketches that try to communicate ideas unfettered by language. You can listen to a musical composition that reimagines AS-level coursework if it could exist outside the bounds of the curriculum.
Although the students might have reflected on how their current teaching could be improved, it's thanks to the receptiveness of Huntington School to creative teaching that we were able to hold these workshops at all. The head teacher, John Tomsett, spoke to us about what he sees as the restrictive bounds of the curriculum as it currently stands, and the pressure towards rote learning exerted by current educational policy. Perhaps the last word should go to his vision of the qualities that an ideal education system would encourage in students, and why it's hard to carve out space to teach these immeasurable qualities when everything must be counted.
I was having this conversation the other day about culture, and so our three values are respect, honesty and kindness, and it's measuring the kind of more amorphous things that are there, intangibles. So this afternoon I was just walking past some chap selling something for charity, and I said, I've got no money, I can't buy any. So year 7 was going by and said, I've got some money, so if you want some. And it's that type of thing, which you can't measure, but that kind of, that's invaluable. Yes, they holding doors open for people, just small acts of kindness every day. And I think you have to stop the kind of mad accountability of counting stuff that's easy to count, rather than counting the stuff that really matters. What really matters is the whole person. What really matters is that at the end of here, I think I say in our Vision 2018, I want this to be a civilised institution that has a civilising effect on the people who work within it, and that's what I try and do.